welcome back to Voidheart Studios, and today I'm going to be doing another nostalgia review. What are nostalgia reviews? A nostalgia review is where I take a look at an old or discontinued blaster and see how it would work in any certain sphere of Nerf today, check out its mod potential, show it firing, and give even some brief speculation at the end. And today, I'm doing a group nostalgia review of the Nerf Rival Edge series. The Edge series was a rival mini subline created in 2019 that focused more on target shooting rather than competitive sporting. And the first blaster I'm going to overview is the Mercury. The Mercury was released in 2019 as part of the Nerf Rival Edge series, and is a spring-powered, side-prime, internal magazine-fed pistol. Let's get into it. Starting up at the front, you have the muzzle. No end strike barrel logo, of course, because it's Rival. Going back from there, you have the front sight, which corresponds to the rear sight notch in the back. It gives a good little sight picture. I am not complaining. Going back from there, you have the magazine loading door. To load the magazine, you pull the priming handle back, and you shove it in thine balls like so. It's actually now fully loaded. Then you close it by pushing the priming handle forward, and then of course you pull the trigger down here to fire. It's a nice little bladed trigger, and it feels good in the hands. This grip is very fat and very ergonomic. I really love holding this grip, actually. The safety is on both sides. Of course, if the safety is held down, the blaster, or not held down, but in the down position, you cannot pull the trigger, and thus therefore cannot fire. Once you flip it up, you're able to fire. Another neat thing is that this side prime handle here can be threaded off and then threaded back in on the other side. Due to the nature of this being a relatively compact pistol, you really don't want that side prime on the same side as your firing hand. So this would be a configuration for a right-handed shooter. And of course, as I am a left-handed shooter, I put it on the right side. So that way I can hold the grip while still priming. So yeah. Next up in terms of overview is the Jupiter. The Jupiter was released in 2019 as part of the Rival Edge series, and is a spring-powered, bolt-action, internal mag, top-loading blaster. Looks like a sniper rifle. It's hard to say, they're all springers. They all have internal mags. Up at the front, of course, you have the muzzle, no end strike barrel lug, it's a Rival blaster. Going back from that, you have the front iron sight, which is a flip-down iron sight, which corresponds to the rear iron sights at the back, and it gives it a nice little sight picture, and of course the sight gets out of the way if you want to use the rail for an optic. Going back from there, you have the loading port. To access the loading port, you pull up and back on the bolt handle to prime the blaster back, and then you have access to there, and then of course you deposit thy balls, and then you close the priming handle, and you can fire. Going back from there, you have the front tactical rail. This is where you would mount the included bipod. Again, if I had one, I do not. I got this blaster at Goodwill. I did not get this blaster at Goodwill. I got this blaster handed to me by somebody at my group at my very first ever meetup last year. Going back from there, you have the top tactical rail. This is, of course, where you would mount like an optic or something. It doesn't come with an optic, which you'd think it would, something like this would come with like a faux scope or something like that, but it very much does not. Going back from there, you have the grip, and like the Mercury, it's a very comfortable, very ergonomic grip. And it also has that bladed red trigger. It just feels really nice. Above the grip, of course, is the safety. When it is in the down position, you cannot pull the trigger. When it's in the up position, you can obviously fire the blaster. The safety is only present on the right side of the blaster, so yeah, I guess it would be easier to get to with your right thumb, or they think it's easier to get to with your right thumb, but it's actually a lot easier to strike with your left thumb because you don't even have to break grip. So, yeah. Going back from there, you have the stock. This is a thumb hole stock, but it's actually a rather comfortable one. It doesn't feel very tight or restrictive on my hands, and it's, you know, a comfortable length of stock for a bolt-action blaster. And I don't know what it is, but the cheek pad is made of an almost foam composite rubber or something. It's definitely made of a very different material because the rest of the blaster is, you know, hard, I want to say ABS plastic. And then going back here, it's very soft and foamy, and it feels good to rest my face on. And I do like that. Built into the stock is a monopod for use with the bipod, because the bipod it came with had extending legs and all that jank. And so, yeah, the monopod was for, you know, resting it so you could get that sweet, sexy Instagram picture. And of course, it pulls out very easily and has many different points of adjustment, and it has a spring return. So once you want it gone, you can have it gone with the press of a button. And that is it for my overview of the Jupiter. Let's move on to the final blaster that was released in that series, the Saturn. The Nerf Rival Saturn was released in 2020 as part of the Nerf Rival Edge series, of course. And it is a spring-powered pump-action 10-round internal mag blaster that loads from the top. These are all very similar blasters. Of course, up at the front, Rival muzzle. Going back from there, you have, this is actually the front iron sight. It's not just a cosmetic shell piece. It lines up with these rear sights back here, and it does give what could legally be defined as a sight picture. It's not as good as the Mercury or the Jupiter, but it's serviceable. It's definitely passable, and you don't really need to use iron sights with Rival blasters anyways. Going back from there, you have the top tactical rail, and yeah, it's a top tactical rail. I don't know why you would want to put an optic this far forward on your blaster, but hey, it's good for putting speed loaders if you can get a speed loader holster that doesn't interfere with the pump grip. Speaking of the pump grip, this blaster's pump action, and it feels very good to prime. The stroke is very short, but that makes it feel like very fast to prime. Of course, in between the rail sections here is the loading port to load the blaster. You pull back on the pump grip, and once again, like the Mercury, like the Jupiter, oh, I've already started racking it forward. Damn it. As I was saying, like the Mercury, like the Jupiter, deposit thine balls. Close it, and you're good to go. This blaster also has slam fire. Slam fire is achieved by holding down the trigger and then repeatedly pumping the grip, and it will fire every time the grip hits the forward position, like so. Which allows you to be very, very fast, combined with that short draw stroke. Another note on the pump grip, It's very, very smooth, which feels really nice, but it also doesn't have any sort of backstop, and these little grooves don't do well at keeping your hands on it. So if you get sweaty hands very easily when you play Nerf, then you may want to like grip tape it or get one of the bajillion 3D printed grips that probably exist for this thing, or just convert it to lever action. There are kits to convert this thing to lever action, and it tickles my little lizard brain. Of course, going back from there, you have safety. Of course, in the down position, it is locked, and you cannot fire the blaster. Pull it up. Forgot it's empty, but then you can fire the blaster. Going back from here is the stock. The stock kind of sucks. Well, I don't want to say it kind of sucks because it's a serviceable stock. When it comes to shouldering it, it is very short, almost Retaliator stock levels of short. I feel like I have to choke up on it with my hand in order to properly shoulder it. But when it comes to hip firing or doing a lot of the things you would do with a pump action long arm that shoots balls at 100 FPS, then it's fairly serviceable. But of course you can do what I'm sure a good chunk of the hobby has already done and either 3D print a new stock or get a 3D printed stock, or integrate like a sling fire stock into it, because they both have the same wooden aesthetic, and you give it like a butt plate extender, essentially. If you get one new in box, the stock comes detached for shipping purposes, but once it's attached, it's not meant to come off. The only way to take it off is, of course, to take out these little screws. There's 8 of them in the stock, which, God, there's a lot of screws on this blaster. God help me if I ever try to take this damn thing apart. But anyways, I'm going off on tangents again. That's really it for what I have to say on all the blasters. Now let's get into the interesting thing about the Edge series. Let's talk about targets. Each blaster is sold as a targeting set, meaning they come with targets. The Mercury and Jupiter came with swinging targets that were kind of like this. This is the target that came with the Jupiter. The Mercury's target did not have this little base plate at the front here with this little metal piece. The Jupiter's does. The Jupiter's target, when you hit it, it makes that very satisfying ding sound. And it just feels really nice to shoot at. This is one of my choice targets for indoor plinking. Aside from just my dart catcher. And you know, it's just a nice target to use. The Mercury's target, of course, doesn't have that. It's just, the target just has the orange weight without the little metal disc. And the bottom piece doesn't have this front part with the metal thing, and it just swings back and forth when you shoot it. The Saturn, however, came with a very interesting target, and of course I don't have it. All these blasters were thrifted, essentially. And the Saturn basically had 4 disc targets that attached in a like pyramid shape to a base connector in the middle, and the idea was it was, rather than being a reactive target like the Jupiter and the Mercury's targets, it was a self-resetting target, to where if you shot it, it would either just bounce back or it would roll over and reveal one of the other targets. Of course, to get it to actually roll over, you would have to shoot it with a rival blaster or stronger. You would probably get it to jump real high if you shot it with like a 200 FPS Pro Blaster. If I ever get my hands on a Saturn target, I'm shooting it with my Pro Blasters. And the targets are very durable. I have shot my my Jupiter target here at close range with the Moose 2, and it has taken it like an absolute champ. So, yeah, very durable target. And I feel like that's really all I have to say in terms of an overview. So now, let's get into the firing demo. Alright, we are out on the range with the Nerf Rival Edge series blasters. Let's fire them. In all of these blasters, I'm going to be using the blue AccuRival ammo because that's just what has the best chance of hitting the target. So, yeah, let's begin. Starting off with the Mercury. I don't know why I did the extra shot, because it was track fire. But yeah, it's Mercury. Now we go to the Jupiter, which is again loaded with the AccuRival rounds. Go. Now for the Saturn. Again, AccuRival, 10 rounds. It would have been so cool if I would have gotten that to work. Alright. That is all of the Rival Edge series blasters firing. Let's go back inside and talk about them. Alright, we're back inside. Let's talk about the Rival Edge series blasters. I put these blasters up over my chronograph and I achieved averages all within the 90 to 100 range. These are box stock Rival blasters to begin with. And while we're on the topic of objective stuff, let's talk about mod potential. Mod potential is a very friendly thing in Rival. All the Rival blasters have a lot of mod potential, and I think the Mercury actually has T-pull grips that, you know, connect to both sides of the bolt sled and then come back and make a T-pull that you can pull on like a Night Finder, which is good because a lot of people wouldn't want side prime on a pistol. And of course there's, you know, spring mods, and I've seen speed loaders for the, I think I've seen actually speed loaders for the Mercury and the Saturn. But of course any Saturn speed loader will work in the Jupiter because they both have the same capacity. They're both 10 shots. So yeah, mod potential is very high, but of course do note they are Rival blasters, and they are subject to Rival's weird ballistics. Rival is very ballistically weird in the fact that when you mod it up to a certain degree, the performance just goes jank. Watch my Rival Burn review if you want a good example of that. The Rival Burn, which is this this pink and blue blaster behind me, or magenta, shoots Rival at about 140 FPS, 140 to 150 FPS, and they will go damn straight for a solid 35 feet. And then they hit a wall. Not the back wall, because they were flying so straight. They go off to the left or the right or up or down, and they hit whatever wall they can most conveniently impact. If you hit an innocent bystander, you most likely have a Rival Burn, or just a very poorly tuned blaster. But, of course, Rival at high FPS is just whack. But Rival has always been better for indoors because it's always been a lighter and more ballistically strange ammunition. And like, as you saw in the firing demo, with no wind, I had shots pulling to the right on the Jupiter, and I had shots pulling in all different directions with the Saturn because I was outside. It was humid, I had more air resistance, because indoors you have less air resistance, and of course you have less distance between targets. When I do my firing demo for Rival blasters, I put the target about 25 feet away. 25, almost 30 feet away. And because that's, you know, what I would consider engagement range for Rival. Or the 100 FPS type blasters. And I already had shots pulling off. So, yeah. And I was using AccuRival, too. The more accurate blue balls that Hasbro designed. Specifically for being more accurate in Rival blasters. So that was a frickin' lie. Well, not really. It's very accurate. But Rival ballistics aside, I feel like I always have to explain that when I talk about modding Rival blasters. I'm sorry. Aside from that, in terms of practicality as well, these blasters are kind of in the middle tier. I mean, this is a decent pistol, having, 5 rounds on tap. It's very much similar to a Kronos, and the Kronos is like one of the most loved Nerf pistols that was actually released by Nerf, because it's reliable, it shoots at like 90 FPS out of the box, and it's got a bajillion different mods people have done for it. And this is essentially a sexier looking side prime Kronos. These are all basically sexy Kronoses. Chronosi? Chronoses? Not Chronoses. They basically all function the same as a Kronos. They're spring-powered in some manner and have a top-loading internal magazine that curves in some way. But they work. And I mean, any Rival blaster is practical in an indoor range where you have a lower FPS cap and, tight corners, tight quarters. They're very practical in that setting. Outside that setting, in the range of outdoors, maybe at a group or event with a higher FPS cap, you may want to go with, if you're using Rival, you may want to go with something like a Rival Burn and just hope to whatever god you pray in that you hit your shots. Or just get a Proton Pack and a Juno and just dump. somebody in my group has a proton pack that he uses as a secondary, and he is terrifying with that thing because you get lit up with 120 FPS rival shooting like, God, 15 rounds a second. It's crazy. I highly recommend you get the Juno. I want to get a Juno at some point. The issue is also spending all that money on a proton pack, because I would also really, really want to get a proton pack. The devious things I can already imagine myself getting up to with a proton pack. Or the infinite pack is what it's called now. But anyways, God, I'm going off onto tangents a lot today. But now to my opinion of these blasters. I like them. I have actually fielded the Jupiter a couple of times, and the Jupiter has served me well when I have fielded it. I don't think I've gotten any tags with it, but I never felt particularly outgunned at the meetups that I've chosen to run it with. Of course, I haven't gotten any tags with this Jupiter. I went with my friend when I was about 15, 16, to an indoor Nerf venue a long time back. And it was all stock and rival stuff. And I absolutely decimated the small children we were playing against. I really should have looked into that venue, honestly. Me being a 16 at the time. Jeez. Yeah. Anyways, I don't like kids. They're creepy and weird. So I shot them with a rival Jupiter and did tag them quite a lot. But that Jupiter was a loner from the venue. I have not gotten any tags with this Jupiter, sadly. I want to, though. And, of course, the Saturn is probably about as practical as an internal mag blaster gets, is what I would say if the takedown didn't exist. The thing with Rival is, of course, since you don't have to deal with long barrels in your springers, compactness is key. And this thing being so long while only having a 10-round internal mag makes it a little more impractical than something like a takedown. Which, of course, the takedown is about half the size, and it has an 8-round internal mag, which isn't even that much less. It's you're trading, you're trading a big long blaster and you're sizing it way down, and you're only losing 2 rounds. That's peak. That's good. Of course, if you're in a rival war, you've got to watch out for the proton packs and the Nemesises and Prometheuses and the Perseises. That, the full auto ball hoses that are just cannot wait to drown you in their balls. Wait. That was bad phrasing. You know what I mean. Get your mind out of the gutter. I need to get my mind out of the gutter. But, the Saturn is very fun, and I do like plinking with it, and good lord, the fire rate is so fast when you actually get to, slam firing it. You could dump those 10 rounds in pretty quick succession, all things considered, with it being a Springer. And, yeah. Now let's get on to the speculation. The speculation portion of these videos is where I envision myself in the shoes of John Hasbro or Doug Bowser. Didn't they hire on Doug Bowser this year for their lead of product management or whatever? Anyways. And I imagine myself in the shoes of, you know, I say John Hasbro, and say, what would I want this blaster V2 to be like? If Hasbro if Hasbro were to re-release this blaster in the big 26 or 2027 or whenever in the future, what would I want from that V2? Starting off with the Mercury. I know the reason why it's side prime is because it's meant to be like a competition pistol. You know, from like target shooting competitions where they deck out a pistol, so where it's like super sexy, super ergonomic, and it always has that little side charge grip. Now that's very useful in competition pistols. It's not very useful in Nerf, where you have to push that back. It's not very useful in Nerf. I would just make this like a T-pull or a top slide, which this black piece would make a very, like, I'm going to unscrew this bolt handle here. And this black piece here would make a really good slide. Like, I can feel myself gripping this like an operator, like John Wick, and just pulling back that slide, pushing it forward. It feels like a nice, comfy, really long slide. And then they stuck a red thingy out the side of it, and it's side prime. I would say even just change nothing about this blaster aside from getting rid of that side prime. And that is my speculation for what I would want a Mercury V2 to be. Now how about the Jupiter? And actually, I'm going to cover both the Jupiter and the Saturn at the same time in a big thing called, why are you not mag-fed? Like, I get it. This was the Edge series. This was a target shooting-based series that was meant for, you know, firing at fancy targets rather than being practical for firing at other people. But Nerf is very much a hobby as much as it is a toy. So you know people are going to want to shoot these at each other. Why not make them mag-fed? And, you know, tactically swapping mags is a thing very much in competition shooting. I've seen videos of people doing, like, competition shooting drills, and they mag swap quite a lot, or cylinder swap in the case of, like, the cowboy ones that I see. And it's just strange that these aren't mag-fed. I would love for them to be. And they even have places where a mag could come out. Like, literally, they could have just made this a proto-Pathfinder and had the mag stick down out at an angle. Now, granted, they would lose the sexy skeet shooting shotgun aesthetic, but I mean, hey, whatever. You're not stuck to a 10-round capacity. And the Jupiter, they also have plenty of real estate right here to shove a magwell in and make that work. They were Hasbro in 2019. This was back when they were still sometimes making good decisions. So, yeah. Now I'm going to go over them, you know, uniquely for their unique little nitpicks. If I were to release a Jupiter, or if I were to be John Hasbro and make a Jupiter 2.0, I'd give it a scope. Even if it's just a fake scope, even just a hollow piece of plastic with a reticle in it, something to make this thing look more snipery. You know? I think I have a rival scope a 3D printed rival scope. There it is. I have a 3D printed rival scope that just looks right pretty on this thing. It looks like it fits. It feels like it fits. It's actually very ergonomic to shoulder the stock with this scope on. Why didn't Hasbro make a scope? Like an actual scope, not their dinky little rival pinpoint red dot sight. But yeah. Love this 3D printed scope that I got from my 3D printing guy. Now, for the bolt handle. I get it. It was to be space efficient, and of course you're not chambering anything long. But the bolt stroke feels too short. Like, maybe it's just because I don't know what a real bolt stroke is supposed to feel like, but, you know, as somebody who's operated the Moose 2 and the Cynthia and the Smiley, I feel like the prime stroke on this thing could do to be a little longer. But that's just a cosmetic nitpick for the Jupiter. Now, for the Saturn. If I were to John Hasbro and re-release the Saturn, I would change two things aside from making it mag-fed. New pump, new stock. My only two nitpicks about this blaster are the pump grip, because your hand can very easily slip off that, and the stock, because it's too damn short. And this is their 14 plus line. This is their 14 and up line, and they released a stock this tiny. Does Hasbro know what they're feeding 14-year-olds nowadays? Even in 2019, 14-year-olds were tall. Jeez, like, my height peaked at 14 years old. I hit my peak of a glorious 5'11.5" at around 14 or 15 years old. So, I don't understand why they couldn't have made this stock a little longer. Like, it's not that it's inaccessible. Look at how much my arm is already bent just while holding this in a typical rifle stance. They could have gone to making it longer. Just a little bit of extra length. And this stock would have been perfect. And they fumbled it. But that's what 3D printed parts are for. Anyways, I feel like that should conclude this nostalgia review. I will not be leaving a purchase link in the description for these blasters because they are all discontinued. Good luck. You can probably find them at Goodwill or on eBay, or buy them from somebody in your group, or get them handed to you by somebody in your group. It's kind of how I got all these. Well, I bought this one from someone in my group, was handed this one by somebody in my group, and I found this sucker at Goodwill. But anyways, if you did enjoy this video, then please leave a like and subscribe. You know how to support a channel. It's 2026. Everybody's used YouTube since they were, 2 years old nowadays. And comment your favorite Edge series blaster. My personal favorite is the Jupiter, but I do also really love the Saturn. And I will see you all in the next one. And until then, take care.